Time now for Back Pages Tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning newspapers. Joining us are the Daily Mail's Ian Ladyman and Martin Hardy from The Times. Welcome along to you both. Let's quickly run through to the morning's back pages. Draw from L. The Sun, along with the majority of the back pages tonight, highlight the tough draw England have been handed for the World Cup. The Times leads with quotes from the England boss, Thomas Tuchel, who says the group looks difficult. The Star, though, says Tuchel's scared of nobody as he hunts for World Cup success. While the Telegraph looks at the potential route to the final, with England having to win the World Cup the hard way. And Scotland's wait to find out who they will face is over. Brazil, Haiti and Morocco. It's party time for the Scots. But I think we've got to start with the draw itself and everything that went on for what seemed like about 4 hours before a ball was even drawn. Ian, what did you make of it? FIFA at its best.
FIFA at its embarrassing and shameful worst, I think, is what I would say. I felt very uncomfortable watching it. It was a cross between the Juves and Song contest and a party political broadcast for Donald Trump, from what I could see. I make light of it, but it's not really funny. I actually feel quite ashamed and embarrassed of it, really, because as a football journalist of 27, 28 years, I feel almost complicit in what we saw, and I think a lot of us should feel that way, because we put up with this. We put up with FIFA and the way that Infantino behaves and the way he allows Donald Trump to stand there and talk about political issues that should be nowhere near football, frankly. Indulging him, awarding him a ridiculous prize for peace, which obviously we could sit here and scoff at all night if we had the time. And we should jump up and down more about things like this. The individual associations should make it clear that they don't want to be associated with such rubbish, such embarrassment. It reflects badly on all of us. Look, we're all going to go to the World Cup. I'll go to the World Cup. I'm sure Martin will go. All the associations will go. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute we don't participate in the greatest football show on earth, but that doesn't mean we should allow it to be undermined in such a way, and this shouldn't be allowed to characterise the World Cup. And it's the way it's become. It's become Infantino's personal little sideshow, and it really shouldn't be. The English FA and a lot of the other powerful associations around the world should be lobbying FIFA hard to make sure that we don't have to sit through something like that again.
Martin, I mean, FIFA have always said, that football and politics don't mix. So what was going on with this Peace Award?
As Ian said there, the whole thing felt like a farce, and I'm sure the three of us can remember the Brits Award when it was Sam Fox and Mick Fleetwood, and it was kind of the tall guy and the small woman, and we had the reverse this time with Kevin Hart and Heidi Klum, and nobody known a great deal about the game. And it was only when finally, 2 hours in, that we got to the draw, that you were reminded of why, when we'll come to Scotland's group, but when Scotland got Brazil, you're reminded to a game in 1982, and I'm still heartbroken to this day that Brazil team did not win the World Cup with Adair and Zico and Socrates. So you're reminded of the magic of why we want to see the World Cup, but it's in the middle of this complete chaotic mess and political showcase for Trump and Infantino. It's an awful spectacle. It was also so poor and cringeworthy, you couldn't watch it. You were going to do something else and think, have they actually started the draw yet? They haven't. It blundered on and on and on. And funny enough, Trump has one of his phrases, which is warning of a civilization erasure, and that felt like the erasure of part of football's soul today. We want to watch the magic and these great players. We do not want to sit through the awfulness of that 2.5 hours today. But yeah, at some point we'll get excited for the World Cup, but not from watching that nonsense this afternoon. Let's
get to the draw itself then. So some differing opinions on the back pages. Draw from L, says the Sun. Is it a tricky group, Ian?
It's a relatively difficult group, given that this is a 48 team World Cup, another indulgence for Gianni Infantino. It's a 48 game team tournament, sorry. So that means it's actually quite difficult for the big nations to come out of pot A and get a very difficult group. France may disagree; they've got one. England have actually got a reasonably challenging group. I don't think that's the worst thing, because if you're going to win a long World Cup and you've got to win 8 games to win this World Cup, there's no good coasting through the group. You've got to be challenged in the group. You've got to play games that test you and tax you and ask you questions. And I think this England group with Croatia and Panama and Ghana will absolutely do that for England. I think it will give them a test. And there was one thing that I've just actually noticed before we came on air that I think is really, really important and will be a huge challenge for Thomas Tuchel and his players, because England are in Group L, so they start the tournament almost a week after the tournament itself begins, which means that even though this is a 5.5 week tournament, and I've had to check this to make sure it's right, but it is right, England, if they get through as group winners, will have to play 4 games in 13 days if they are to get beyond the quarterfinals. That goes from their second group game to their last 16 game. They'll have to play 4 games in 13 days in the middle of a 5.5 week tournament. That will be a challenge. A game every 3 days at a World Cup in America with the climatic conditions will be an enormous challenge for an English team.
Thomas Tuchel, Martin, says himself, it's on the back page of the Times, that it does look difficult. Do you agree with him?
Yeah, the story we had from Thomas earlier in the day was kind of, why can't we go and win it? And I think then he's seen the draw and been a bit more diplomatic in his opinions. I don't think it's a bad group. The running order of the matches, starting with Croatia, might not be ideal as the one team with a bit of history and proven quality. But I would say to get Ghana's a second game, and then Panama is not the end of the world. And I get what Ian's saying there. It's all swings and roundabouts, but the fact that the first game isn't till June the 17th, and we know that the Premier League is the most demanding league in the world, and come the end of the season, if the teams are doing well in the Champions League, you've got players who are generally fatigued. That extra week might not be the end of the world for Thomas Tuchel to give his players a little bit of a rest. As Ian said, it then gets very interesting in terms of the 4 games. If we're talking about England potentially winning, we don't know who's going to win the groups, but in theory it could be a quarter-final with Brazil, a semi-final with France, and then a final with Spain and Argentina on the draw that England have, and that's extremely difficult. Again, those 4 games in 13 days would be a bit of a nightmare, but we have the system in England now, and the top clubs have got so many games that these players are used to that relentless recovery period of play Saturday or Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. So that might be something that helps them. The squad will be bigger this time, but as I said, I think the group's not that bad, and will give England the chance to kind of find their feet and hopefully come through that as the group winners, and then it starts to get very interesting.
Of course, they might actually do some preparation, unlike the cricketers. Let's look at the back page of the Mirror. They're calling it a dream draw, Ian.
Yeah, I do love the way that different organisations look at it differently, and you're absolutely right about the cricketers. But by the way, I think England will play 2 warm-up games, probably in Miami, we think, or Fort Lauderdale or somewhere before the tournament starts. So there will be some warm weather competitive football for them to have. I mean, look, I can only echo what Martin just said there. Croatia is probably as challenging an opening game in the World Cup that England have had for quite a while, I would say. The bottom line is, if you're going to win a World Cup, you got to beat good teams. So we're starting off with a decent team. The FIFA ranking for Croatia is 10 at the moment. We've had difficult matches against them before, we know. Beat us in the semi-final in 2018, of course, in Moscow. But honestly, I don't think that Thomas Tuchel will worry about the opposition. He will expect England. You can finish third in your group and get through at this World Cup. I don't think he'll be losing sleep about the opposition. I think he'll be looking at the scheduling with some interest for sure. And Martin makes the point there about a 26-man squad. You'll need 26 players at this World Cup.
Perhaps more concerning than the actual group, Martin, is the route from being the way that the draw has panned out, that England are going to have to go. They are going to have to win it the hard way.
No, absolutely. And there was kind of a cultural shift under Gareth Southgate for winning bigger games in World Cups in the group stage than had happened before. But obviously there was the failing against France when Harry Kane missed that penalty. Ian said it spot on there. There is a belief, there is a growing belief that there's potentially enough talent in that squad to go a long way in this competition. To go and win it, you're going to have to beat the best teams. And if you want an example of that, go back to the final of the last World Cup, which was one of the greatest World Cup games that anybody has ever seen, between France inspired by Mbappe and Argentina absolutely inspired by Messi. So you have the two best players in the world, the two best teams absolutely slugging it out, go digging deep to go that extra mile to win this dramatic game. So it's not, this is the World Cup we're talking about. England have won it once in 1966 on home soil. So they're going to have to overachieve in every respect to kind of push that further. To do that, you are going to have to tackle these teams. The one thing I would say is it doesn't feel like I do like Spain a great deal, but it doesn't feel like there's any great, truly outstanding teams in world football at the minute. I go back to Brazil, 82, and the Italy team that beat them, and they were recognised as being real golden generations. At the minute, I don't quite think we have that, which is why, and I've been impressed with Thomas Tuchel's management so far. He will have a quiet belief that they can go a long way in this tournament, I think.
Right, one of my favourite back pages for the morning's papers comes in the Scottish Mail. Let's party like it's 1998. Brazil and Morocco for the Scots, Ian.
Yeah, I mean, it's fabulous that Scotland are there, and it must be fabulous to go to World Cup with that attitude that you just got to go and have a bloody good time and stay as long as you can and come home and reflect on what a wonderful summer you've had, rather than all come home as kind of in disgrace if you can't get past the last 16, as all the English players will. I think that it's a challenging group for Scotland, but look, I saw some of the footage you were showing interviewing Scotland fans before we came on air, and they've got it absolutely right. They wanted a glamour fixture. They don't come any more glamorous than Brazil. We remember games that Scotland have played against Brazil at previous World Cups. That is absolutely what it's about. And let me just say, with the format of the tournament, with a number of third place teams going through, there's absolutely no reason why Scotland, or indeed Wales, or any of the two Irish nations, if they get there through the playoffs, no reason that they shouldn't go there and have their eye on getting out of the group and getting into the last 32. It's possible because of the way the tournament is formatted.
Yeah, I mean, Brazil for Scotland is just it's a dream fixture, isn't it? It was the opening game back in 1998, Martin. And the Brazilians, as one of the people that we spoke to said, the Brazilians love their football as much as the Scots do. I loved that quote.
Yeah, no offence to Scotland, but Brazil's history is a little bit better. The interesting thing there is that it's the final group game for Scotland is against Brazil, and as Ian has said, they may still have a chance of going through. The Scottish way would be to go out in glorious failure. They turned that on its head for the Denmark game when I didn't actually think they played very well, but the goals were of the standard that the best Brazilian players would have been very proud of. It's brilliant for Scotland to be back at the World Cup. I think Steve Clarke's quote today from a man who is not usually verbose with his words was "bring it on," and I think that kind of reflects the nation and just how excited the Scots are to be going to this finals.
Lovely, thanks Martin. We'll take a quick break there. When we come back, we'll have a look at a few more of the sports stories away from the World Cup draw in the morning's paper, including this in The Sun. Is Mikel Arteta set to add to his squad in the January transfer window? You're watching Back Pages tonight, and welcome back to Ian Ladyman from the Daily Mail and Martin Hardy of The Times. Now, Arsenal flying the flag at the top of the league at the minute. Could Mikel Arteta be set to strengthen his squad this January? He says they could look at improving the squad and protecting it. Key injuries, Martin, to some players for Arsenal. Do they need those reinforcements?
I would argue they possibly don't. I think, is it £1 billion that's been spent under his reign now, with another 250 million gone in the summer, and that's not to belittle what they've achieved. I think they're the strongest team in the Premier League at the minute, the strongest, but they also have the strongest squad. They are coping without Odegaard, a centre forward, Gabriel, Saliba. I think they have a big enough squad as it is. But as any manager would say, when you ask him the question, do you want new players? Are you looking at new signings? They will always say yes, because they always have an eye on that refreshing the squad element and also trying to make it a little bit better. I think as it stands, they have enough to win the Premier League. It's whether Mikel Arteta is thinking, you know what, we're in a strong position in the Premier League and the Champions League. Can we push on for both? And that, in fairness, might be a bit of a stretch for his squad. But at some point, Gyökeres, Havertz, Odegaard, Gabriel Saliba, all these players will be fit, and then he'd have a difficult job of managing that squad without adding anything to it in January.
And for you, Ian, do they need more? They've been in this position, strong position before, and it's not quite happened.
No, they don't. But I think it's a beautiful tactic by Mikel Arteta. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's in a position of strength. They're at the top of the league. They're on a fabulous run. It was only a week or so ago that I watched them batter Bayern Munich at the Emirates in the Champions League. And what a time to remind your board and your club that you wouldn't mind a few quid in January, because the supporters are with you. They'll back everything that you say. If Mikel Arteta at the moment tells them that the sky is green, that the Arsenal fans will believe him. So he's just put the ball firmly in his club's court there and said, come on, give us a player in January. He doesn't need one. That doesn't mean it's going to stop him asking for one.
Right, let's go back to the Star. I just want to stay with you, Ian, on this one, being as you're a Manchester man. Ruben Amorim, never out of the papers, is he? I'm the main man. And it's a tricky one on Monday night. Winless Wolves. They've got to start winning at some point, haven't they?
Well, I don't know. Actually, have they? They're not showing any signs of doing so at the moment. But what is absolutely clear is that Manchester United are not the fearsome opposition that they used to be. And look, every time I come on this programme on a Friday night, we teams talk about Manchester United, and that tells you one thing, which is that they're struggling. Because teams that tend to struggle tend to be on the back pages. They're struggling for consistency. It's the same 2 steps forward, 2 steps backwards. I'm been fielding the same questions as he always is. Why are you playing this player? Why are you not altering your system? Why are you throwing defenders on in the second half when you're not beating West Ham at home, etc., etc.? It's just the ever-repeating circle, which tells me that at some point something will give at Manchester United, and that will probably be a change of manager. Not soon, but inevitably at some point, because they just can't find any consistency, and that's because the players aren't good enough.
Talking about Manchester United, though, also sells newspapers. That's another reason why they're always on the back pages. Martin, let's pick up on you. Alexander Isak, a player you know well, up in Newcastle. Arne Slot talking about his record signing and backing him to deliver. Have you been surprised by how he struggled at Liverpool, or is that just endemic of what's happening at Liverpool at the moment?
I do wonder if Alexander Isak could jump in a time machine and do everything a bit differently, whether he would or not, because the damage he's inflicted on himself, on Sweden, on Liverpool, on Arne Slot's reputation, probably on Newcastle's season so far, through his personal strike and the way he left after having been this heroic figure on Tyneside for the job he did in the Carabao Cup semi-final and then the final. And it means that he's still not fit. They're trying to find fitness for him in a team that is absolutely devoid of confidence, aggression, physicality. It's lost a lot of its Jurgen Klopp characteristics, and it's trying to adopt some Arne Slot characteristics, and it seems to be stuck in no man's land at the minute. It was quite fortunate to get a win against Sunderland earlier this week. And it's interesting looking at their fixtures, because I was at Leeds-Chelsea on Wednesday night, and Leeds have found their formation with either 3 centre-halves or 5 at the back, whichever way you want to call it, and 2 centre-forwards in Nemecha and Calvert-Lewin. And those 2 centre-forwards are big and strong, and they are the last thing Liverpool's defence will want to face at the minute. Elland Road will be absolutely electric for that match. Liverpool have got to find that the belief of champions to come through that. They then have Inter Milan away before they play Brighton at home, and they are 3 really, really difficult games for Arne Slot at this current time. If he can get through them, it's Tottenham away, which is not a bad game to pick up. Wolves at home, and as Ian said, have no form whatsoever. And then you'd have a reverse fixture against Leeds. But these next 3 games, I think, will be absolutely pivotal for Arne Slot. I would like to see Alexander Isak, unlike a lot of people perhaps in my neck of the woods, find his form. Such a brilliant player on his day. 23 Premier League goals last season, 6 assists. Was being compared favourably by some people along with Erling Haaland last season, and you look at the way Haaland's just hit the accelerator to remind everybody of how devastating he is. At some point, Isak will come good, but we're just not quite sure when. Perhaps,
Ian, Arne Slot just wanted to talk about a different striker to Mo Salah and the reason he's not starting him.
Yeah, I'm not as agitated about the Salah thing as a lot of people are. It's been clear for a while that Mo Salah needed to be taken out of that team, and he has been. The first time they took him out of the team, they won the game. I was at West Ham last Sunday when Liverpool won there. I thought Liverpool played okay that day. They certainly deserved to win. What I did notice about Isak that day was that he was hiding a little bit. He scored a goal, but it was an instinctive goal, a goal that he took very well, but had no time to kind of worry about when the ball came to him. For large parts of that game, Isak was hiding is a strong word. That suggests that he's being a bit lazy. It's not that, but he wasn't doing that instinctive thing that strikers do when they're in form. He wasn't making the runs off defenders' shoulders. He wasn't stretching the West Ham defence at all. He wasn't making clever runs in the box. And that's what happens when strikers have no confidence. They stop making those natural runs into positions where they can get the ball and receive chances. And that's a terrible position for a striker of Isak's standing and reputation to be in. I'm going to Ellen Road tomorrow for that game that Martin talks about, and absolutely that will be a huge challenge for Liverpool. They were awful against Sunderland on Wednesday night. It doesn't matter who's playing. If you play with that lack of intensity and belief, seriously, you could have Pele and Kenny Dalglish and John Barnes all in the same team, and you're not going to win a football match if you don't play with a bit more energy. They've got to take that to Ellen Road tomorrow, unless they're buried before they even start.
OK, just want to get this in. Martin, you sat down with the Burnley goalkeeper, Martin Dubravka. Now, this, obviously, Burnley against Newcastle is the big game. This is in the Times. Dubravka's first return to Newcastle since leaving St James's. 7 years up there with Newcastle. And then he felt that he hadn't been too well treated. Tell us about what he had to say.
Yeah, I'll try and be quick. This is a player who joined in 2018 when Newcastle were poor. Has a great debut when they're fighting relegation. They win 1-0, makes a great save from Anthony Martial, and the Newcastle fans really take to him. Does well, wins the Player of the Year, but then gets replaced by Nick Pope along the way. He has 2 winners' medals from the Carabao Cup final, and neither is a happy story, which he told me. The first one, he leaves because he'd said he'd been told that he could fight for the number 1 jersey, but Nick Pope got it. He goes to Manchester United on loan, perhaps doesn't play quite as many games as he thought he would, but does play in the Carabao Cup. He's back at Newcastle by the time Newcastle play Manchester United of all teams. He's sat with the Newcastle fans as Manchester United win 2-0, and he can't play, and Newcastle are short of a goalkeeper, but he's cup tied. He gets offered the winner's medal that day and turns it down, but it gets sent to him via his agent, and he's since given it to his father, Joseph, back home in Slovakia, another goalkeeper. You then fast forward to he was ready to leave Newcastle in just at the start of January to move to Saudi Arabia. He was on Nick Pope was injured. He had a great run. He was about to leave. Plays Arsenal. Man of the match display. Newcastle win 2-0. Says goodbye. The club then say you can't leave. You can't leave. He signs a new deal and 2 days later gets dropped and doesn't play in the Carabao Cup final again this time, but still.
Brilliant, Martin. That's I'm going to have to stop you. We're running out of time. Thank you both for your company on Back Pages tonight.